Just a month ago, Apple launched their new spatial computing platform called VisionPro. It's a $3,500 product which is only available in the US as of now and will be released to the rest of the world later this year. As a developer, it's very interesting to see a new space where you can come up with fresh ideas to build new applications on. And I don't personally own one of them, but as a developer, I wanted to add my thoughts on what VisionOS is capable of and what building new applications on this platform would look like. It's just not an iPhone for your face. If you're a developer who has developed applications for Apple platforms, it won't be a surprise that you will be using Xcode. You will be mostly writing code in Swift and creating UIs using Swift UI and mostly using the same APIs. And if you don't have access to a VisionPro like most users outside US want, you can even use a simulator that would simulate the experience of a VisionPro user. If you look at the developer documentations, you can see that there are functions you could use that would emulate actions like gestures or look. One important thing to note here is not everything is a gesture. I will explain why in a minute. And the similarity between an iPhone and a VisionPro mainly comes from the fact that last year's WWDC, when they previewed all the apps that's available in VisionPro, most of the apps looked similar to iPad apps, which is just floating mid-air and just has a lot of transparency or glassmorphism added to it. This is true for most of the inbuilt Apple apps. This is not true for other third-party apps. There are some cool apps available on the Apple App Store now, and one of the most notable one is on the Apple Arcade side, which is Fruit Ninja. Fruit Ninja, all the fruits and objects hovers in 3D space, and instead of holding blades, you simply use your hand. It's like your arms are the weapon. It's much more of an immersive experience. And the other notable one was Jigspace. Jigspace creates 3D presentations of objects for training, sales, and marketing. They showed a 3D model of an Alfa Romeo F1 car and how you can see real life like size of object and do any modification to them. The developer was saying that you could even rip off a part from these cars and put it in whatever order you want. Just totally cool. There are also other renders of some cool app ideas out there. One of them is the Spatial F1 broadcast. This app shows the track action on a volumetric track that rests on your coffee table and you can see real-time data and views. There are also other developer stories on Apple's website. I will leave a link in the description for you to check it out. One app that I want to give a special shout to is Uno. Uno is developed by Chris, one of the developers that I follow on Tech Twitter, now X. It's his own version of YouTube app for VisionPro, since native YouTube doesn't have an app for the platform yet. So a special shout to Chris for making it possible for everyone who uses YouTube on VisionPro. Now back to the point, if you watch closely, you could see all the assets and materials in VisionOS has exceptionally high quality, and that combined with this immersive experience where you can walk up to the object and interact with it, I don't think you could achieve that sort of experience with anything like iPhone or iPad. Not everything has to be a gesture. VisionPro offers an infinite spatial canvas to explore, experiment, and play, giving you the freedom to completely rethink your experience in 3D space. People can interact with your app while staying connected to their surroundings or immerse themselves completely in a world of your own creation. The website, they mention mainly 3 building blocks: windows, volumes, and spaces. And your experiences can be fluid, that you can start in a window and bring in a 3D content and then transition fully to an immersive scene and come right back. Remember when Apple Watch came out back in 2015? It was nothing like what we have today. It was just a fashion accessory. It didn't have GPS, it didn't have any health features, and it wasn't even water resistant. And fast forward 10 years, it's completely a new device. My point is that VisionPro knows what it is now. And Apple clearly have a plan for its future. So we can almost guarantee that any assumptions that we make now will be completely wrong 10 years from now. Since it's a new technology with no existing reference, it's basically an open book. For example, if you're designing a list, it has to be a 3D list. If you're designing a text box, it has to be 3D. Or maybe it can take a 3D text font inside. But you have to find that balance between designing something in a 2D space versus a 3D space. In their human interface guidelines, Apple suggests focus on familiar UI paradigms like Windows, prioritizing comfort and familiarity when performing regular tasks, and using immersive experience for when you really want a moment to land. And the choice is yours, and it all starts with the building blocks we mentioned earlier for VisionOS. Tech stack. I want to briefly touch on the tech stack that is used to build a VisionOS app. Number one on the list is Swift UI, which we are all familiar with. It is used to create windows in the shared space. Next one is ARKit. ARKit helps add skeletal hand tracking and accessibility features. These features allow the user to control and interact content with eyeball, voice, head and hand movements. The next one is RealityKit. RealityKit extends the interface by adding 3D elements using Reality View to give added depth. It is also used to render 3D content with Reality View. An alternative to RealityKit is Model 3D. And the next one is Material X. Material X shaders are used to create dynamic effects and integrate them into RealityKit using Reality Composer Pro. USDZ files. We can create 3D content, objects and meshes using any of our favorite tools and store it in USDZ files. The future. I think we can all agree that VisionPro is a very impressive and powerful piece of hardware, and if you're a developer who has prior experience developing for Apple platforms, you can whip out an app in a surprisingly small amount of time. But to grow as a platform, having a healthy ecosystem of applications and complex apps like we use on a day-to-day basis on our iPhones and iPads, VisionOS still has a very long way to go. And top of that, the APIs for VisionOS are only specific to VisionOS at the moment, so it makes it much more complex to maintain a cross-platform application that works well on iOS, macOS, and VisionOS. And something to look forward will be WWDC 24. Hopefully they could take a step forward and make VisionOS a bit more mature from a developer's perspective and address a lot of the cross-platform issues they have now. That's been my thoughts on the latest Apple Vision Pro and VisionOS as a developer. And if you're watching this as a developer, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And I'm trying to get my hands on a Vision Pro as soon as it's available here in Europe. So watch this space for more related content. Until then, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have been, thanks for tuning in.